A legend in the Midrash explains how we merited receiving the Torah. Like an aspiring writer going from publisher to publisher, hoping to have their manuscript read and accepted for publication, God went from nation to nation, asking each to receive and accept the Torah. Invariably, the leadership would ask one question. Maybe, but what's in it? The dialogue went something like this. God would respond, well, it says, thou shalt not steal. Not steal. That's ridiculous. We're plunderers. That's how we make our living. Thanks, but no thanks. And you should get out of here before someone hears such an idiotic idea. God then went to the next nation. And after being asked the usual question, what's in it? God responded, thou shalt not murder. Not murder? That's ridiculous. We have no skills other than killing. And we are quite proficient at it and make a good living. So thanks, but no thanks. And you should get out of here before someone hears such a ludicrous idea and tries to undermine our economy. And God goes to every nation in the world, so this midrash, to repeat some version of the above dialogue, picking out a different commandment that people latches onto as the deal breaker for them. And finally, God goes to one of the smallest nations of the world, the Israelites, and offered them a gift of a tablet that contained the Torah. Our Israelite ancestors asked a different question. They asked, maybe, but how much does it cost? And God responded, it's free. Whereupon the Israelites quickly rejoined, okay, we'll take two. Please excuse my inner Mel Brooks. I couldn't help myself. The version of the Midrash I just shared with you actually states that after God made the offer of the Torah to the Israelites, they immediately responded, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do it all. And now that we've agreed to do it, tell us what's in it. With that faithful and trusting response, God awarded the Torah to us. And since I first heard this midrash, I felt an even closer kinship to our people, into which I was fortunate enough to be born. We were different from the rest of the world. Not necessarily always better, not necessarily always good or always right, but different in that we had a unifying code that was greater than any one individual. And we were willing to sacrifice a lot of personal autonomy for far-reaching values that unified us as a people, even when we did not agree or behave exactly the same. Our individual needs or wants were important, of course, but never more important than the needs of the whole. In our history, we were never stronger than when we shared those overriding values, and never weaker than when we abandoned them in pursuit of parochial rewards. In the somewhat antiquated literary narratives of Tanakh, the Bible, when our ancestors followed the will of God, they were rewarded with peace and prosperity in their land. Conversely, when they did not fulfill God's will, they were attacked and in the extreme were expelled from the land. Tanakh thus teaches that having an independent country was always going to be conditional. You would have it when you deserved it, but you could lose it if you abandoned the very values that earned you the right to that nation. That was the power of Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do, and then we will find out what's in it. Then we will listen. A country deserves to exist when its people put aside their individual needs and commit themselves to larger values and the security that comes from observing those values. Just last week, we again observed the nightmare of our collective failure to protect our children. On May 24th in Uvalde, Texas, a shooter murdered 19 children and 2 adults, wounding 18 others at the Robb Elementary School. Is there a societal value greater than preserving the safety and well-being of our youngest and most defenseless population? And furthermore, if we fail, as we continue to do we still merit having a country at all? And between May 24th and June 1st, those 8 days following Uvalde, our country experienced 20 more mass shooting incidents. Taft, Oklahoma, Charleston, South Carolina, Benton Harbor, Michigan, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Henderson, Nevada, Chattanooga, Tennessee were among the cities witnessing violence. A mass shooting, as defined by the Gun Violence Archives, is a shooting in which at least 4 people are killed or injured, not counting the perpetrator. There have been 233 mass shootings so far this year. 233. What is that, 2 every day on the average? In fact, only on May 26 has there not been a mass shooting in the past number of weeks. Since Sandy Hook, there have been 3,900 mass shootings. Through May 31st, at least 4 mass shootings every single week this year. 256 people killed, 1,010 injured. If you count non-mass shootings, some 321 people are shot daily in our country. It weighs on my heart. I find that unbearable. I find it unbearable to hear a child saying she had to smear blood on herself so she could pretend to be already shot. An elementary school 4th grader. There is no agreed upon Torah for how to maintain the safety of our children. Everyone has a different idea on how to safeguard the children in school, or the shoppers in Buffalo, or the worshipers in communities of faith. Everyone has a point. Everyone has a good point. I'm not here to argue people's points. Some want more guns. Some want no guns. Some want restrictions on the type of guns available for sale, while others want unlimited access. Some call it an obscenity and others a cherished constitutional right. And I actually think that part of the failure of our doing something is our failure to see that somebody else has a point. So I'm not arguing points and I'm not wanting to score points. What I want to say and what I want to offer is seichel, some common sense wisdom. We will not agree on all the details. But na'aseh v'nishma, we must recommit to the common good and put aside the notion that any one individual or any one group or any groups of individuals should impose their will, beliefs, or practices upon the majority, and damned be the result, even including murdered children. It's enough of that from the left and enough of that from the right. To merit our country, we must na'aseh v'nishma. We must agree that some sort of steps must be taken, because we are the only country that has this problem. The words of the Torah are finite and fixed, but the thousands of volumes of commentary on the Torah speak to the fact that there are multiple interpretations of Torah. But that does not mean that in the greater picture, we don't share something in common, some common perspectives. One unifying principle of Jews and Judaism everywhere has always been the sanctity of life, that there is nothing more important than life. And we've always agreed upon the preciousness of children. To merit remaining a country, then we have to find a way to reach commonality, to attain what will probably be a compromise, which our rabbis have always suggested was a good thing, not a negative thing, because it does something to make everybody feel like they got something and that we've moved a needle for some common good. We need to reach a compromise so that we can do something, so that we don't lose sight of why we are here and why we deserve to continue the American experiment. My personal opinion can't be worth more than the deaths of children. My personal politics cannot matter more than yours. I don't take sides on those things, but where to start? So what is quite clear in poll after poll after poll after poll after poll is that an overwhelming majority of the country wants some sort of background checks on gun purchases. An overwhelming majority of the country feel that people on a no-fly list, on a government terrorist watch list, should not be able to buy or own guns. Of course, if somebody is cleared and put on there mistakenly, then once they're off, that's a different matter. An overwhelming majority, according to poll after poll, are asking for red flag laws that allow governmental agents to temporarily confiscate a gun when there is a suspicion of real dire mental illness. The guns are immediately returned if the person is mentally competent to own that gun. The majority of gun violence incidents since 2017, at least, are from people under 21 years of age. That is pretty clear from statistics. There are states where 18-year-olds can buy guns and assault rifles but are too young to buy Sudafed and too young to buy a beer. Do we have that backward, maybe? 18-year-olds, is there a reason why they need assault weapons? I'm not talking even about other kinds of guns. I'm talking about assault weapons, which are not used for hunting. I come from a hunting state. Most of my friends went hunting. Assault weapons are to assault people. That's what they're for. And hot-headed 18-year-olds don't seem to have the maturity based on the statistics when an argument happens to not reach for a gun and shoot somebody. Now, true, some of these modest, any of these, pick one of them, if we started with one thing, it is true that any or all of what I just said will not stop all such attacks. Absolutely true. And there are many other preventative and protective measures that those people will say, I'm not asking for enough. But we can't afford to wait until we all agree on something. Because 321 people are being shot every day we wait. More and more are being done by kids to children. Of course, once we put into a modern method, we can monitor the results over time. Was it good? Was it not good? There's not a single law that we can make today that can't be undone 6 months or a year later if it's ineffective or not working properly. Not a single one. We can always undo a law that's made. And if what we're doing is working, but we need something more, we can always add something in another year or two. And of course, we should continue a respectful, calmer than I am this past week, but a calm, respectful caring dialogue, particularly with people who might not agree with us entirely, so that we can not get our point across, but so we can hear what's in other people's hearts, what's motivating their thinking, what they're scared about, what they're nervous about, what they're hopeful about. That's what discussions are for. Mature ones, anyway. And of course, anything we do will be imperfect. It will be. It will require tweaking. And of course, we have lots to do in the areas of security and mental health and how to balance the public good with individual freedoms, both of which we support. And there's many other fronts, education, research, and advocacy that we all have to be better at. But can we not at least begin the process of coming together to assert that we are a country that cares for others, especially our children? If the answer is no, we can't, because that won't be enough doing those measures, then I respectfully ask, how many more children are you willing to see die until the governmental leaders will agree upon all of your utopian packages and suggestions? And if the answer is no, you can't infringe on any of my rights, even if to save children from mayhem and murder, do we even deserve to have a country? Because it's not a country that says I have the right to drive on any side of the road I want. We don't have a country if people say I don't care about stop signs and stoplights. We shouldn't have any laws at all. If you advocate for that, you're not advocating for a country, you're advocating anarchy. And if you advocate we have to have every single law that's possible, then you're not advocating for democracy and freedom. But we do have the responsibility as well as the right to think what is the best thing for the public good. And with cars, we have sensible regulations with stoplights and stop signs, and with requirements that you drive on this side of the road and not on the side where people are coming that way. That inhibits my individual freedom, yes. And maybe occasionally some of those DMV laws are silly and need to be pared back, maybe. Okay, willing to do that too. But I'm not willing to give up all car laws, and I'm not willing to impose tons more. I think we can find common ground. And if we can do that for cars, and people get killed by cars, we should be able to come to something closer to sanity with regard to guns. So I'm asking all of us, get off our high horses. And that's very hard to do because we live in a political climate where if you're not on a high horse, for some reason, you're a terrible person who should be yelled and screamed at. You should be on a high horse, and it should be the one alongside my high horse. But that's really not what we should be doing. We can't do that anymore. We have to get off our high horses. We have to talk to each other, love each other, hug each other, and find a way forward. Shabbat Shalom.